Hi and welcome to a Create Today video hosted by Scrapbook and Card Study magazine. I'm Jen Gallacher and today we're going to use a couple of different stamps from a variety of companies to create a card. The first stamp I'm going to use is this designer floral stamp from Carta Bella Paper. And I'm going to peel that top part off. And this stamp is called Victorian Floral. And I'm going to actually just leave it on the background here. And I'm going to use a couple of colors from Stampin Up. This one is called Crushed Curry. And I'm going to go ahead and ink up the entire stamp with this beautiful kind of almost mustard yellow color. And you'll notice that it's going to create kind of a tone-on-tone color on my cardstock, which is also Crushed Curry from Stampin Up. Now once you have the entire background inked up, that's actually really pretty like that, I will place this pre-cut piece of cardstock right on top, and then you just need to burnish it. You can burnish it with your fingers, you can use a tool such as a punch you have on hand, but basically without making the paper slip, you are adding that pattern to the entire piece of cardstock. Once you're done, this is what you will get. We're going to use it as a horizontal piece on our card, but this shows you the lovely pattern that it creates. We're going to create another panel to go along the bottom of our card. For the bottom, we're going to change from a floral pattern to this diamond pattern. And I believe this is a basic gray pattern that was created by Hero Arts. Either way, what I want you to look for is something that's a little more graphic and geometrical in nature. We're going to use Raspberry Ripple, a dark burgundy color from Stampin' Up, to ink up just a part of this stamp. Again, just cover the entire part of the stamp where you're going to place the paper. Since my cardstock is a little bit smaller than this stamp, at least in terms of width, I don't need to ink up the whole top. Again, I'm using some Bazzill pattern paper, or rather cardstock this time around. On one side it has the pattern, but on the other side it is smooth. To get the cleanest stamp image, you want to use the smooth side. Again, you want to burnish that pattern right into that cardstock using your fingers. And once it's done, you get this nice pattern. Now that we have the two pieces stamped and they've had some time to dry, we can add them right on top of an A2 card. Now when I'm placing it down, I'll notice the pattern in the stamped image, and I may move things around until I get exactly what I'm looking for. Next, I'm going to place the purple band at the bottom of the card. Again, the card is in a horizontal position. This particular band I pre-cut to go across the entire card, whereas the yellow cardstock, I left a little bit of a white border around it. I wanted to incorporate some basic shapes into this card, so I've used some great die-cut shapes. You may consider adding some of these shapes to your die-cut arsenal. One is this pink circle from Spellbinders, and I've cut this out of a navy Bazzill cardstock. This particular set comes with some concentric circles that go a little bit smaller, so you get a lot of different dies with this particular die set. This circle, from which I have cut it from the Neenah 110-pound weight white cardstock, solar white. It's a circle, and again there are lots of different sizes, and it just cuts out the circles. And before I cut them out, I made sure that they would fit within one another. So look for dies that work well together and also give you some basic shapes with which you can stamp. The next set we're going to use is this WPlus9 set. It has happy wishes as well as some other phrases, as well as some botanicals including leaves and flowers. We're going to start with one of the leaves, and I like that you get leaves that point in different directions. And rather than stamp them with a green, we're going to go with Not Quite Navy from Stampin' Up. And we're going to stamp right along this top edge. Because these are clear acrylic stamps, you can easily see where you're stamping. Then clean off your stamp. I'm going to skip this step and move on to stamping the next leaf. Again, Not Quite Navy. Experiment with using different colors and see if you can get different shapes. Now one thing I want to do before I place this down is I'm going to be adding a flower. So I just want to make sure that I'm leaving enough room for my flower to stamp this leaf. And again, I'm going to come off slightly. Just kind of have that pattern come off that circle just a little bit. Press firmly. I'm rocking it a little bit, but don't rock it too much. We're going to use the crushed curry for the flower. And I can just get my placement exactly how I want. And again, I'm going to bring the flower just a little bit off this circle and stamp firmly. See this beautiful pattern that's kind of sticking off the top of the card. Now on this particular stamp set, they have little bits that you can place inside your florals. So we're going to use the burgundy to stamp one of these smaller pieces inside this larger floral. I'm using the raspberry ripple to just ink a little dot piece to go right in the center of that flower. With some of that extra Neenah silver white cardstock, stamp an additional flower with the burgundy center and one more of those not quite navy leaves. Then fussy cut around the elements so we can use them later on the card. So again, stamp the flower and the leaves on a second sheet of that Neenah silver white paper. We're going to add the phrase Happy Wishes with some Tip Top Taupe or any kind of craft or gray looking ink. This one is from Stampin' Up. And I've placed it on a clear acrylic block with a grid. And we're going to stamp over some of that leaf, and I'm going to move the stamp out of the way to make sure I get a nice clean stamp set, or stamp image rather. Just make sure you press firmly. You can see that our phrase is showing through. We're going to add a secondary phrase in burgundy. We're going to use the phrase On Your Special Day. This is also from the same stamp collection. And we'll place it just below that Happy Wishes. You can see that on the very bottom edge here, I've made a little bit of a boo-boo. We're actually going to cut that part off, but this is how it should look up to this point. You can see that I've cut the circle just below the phrase, and this is how it looks when it's placed on that blue pinked circle. So let's go ahead and attach that, and then we're going to trim off the excess pieces of that blue cardstock. And I have the cardstock pattern facing up. I like my lines to be straight on my card, and then I'll just trim off using that bottom edge of that white circle as my guide, the rest of that pinked circle. Now we can add it to our card, and we're going to tuck it on the right side just behind that purple cardstock that we stamped. And the key is to make sure that our phrase is nice and straight across that bottom edge. Then I'm going to take a strip of Kraft Cardstock so that I can mimic some of that Kraft Cardstock here. And I'll add a little bit of adhesive to that. That just brings in that color in another place on the card. I'm going to leave a little bit of the purple peeking out at the top. And then using the back edge of the card, I can trim off any excess pieces of cardstock. Now we have those extra little bits and pieces here that we stamped before, and we're going to add them to the bottom of the card with some glue dots. We'll add the stem first so that the flower can rest on top, but we want to make sure that we can still see the phrase. You could also pop dot these if you wish. Again, make sure that you don't obscure the phrase. And then I have some enamel dots here. And I'm just going to add some in this craft color here at the bottom of the card. So here you have a card that uses a couple of different stamp set in a rich color scheme to create a Happy Wishes card for a friend or family member. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our tutorial videos. And to subscribe to our magazine, visit our website.